Alright, my fellow Kryptonians, welcome to a very special episode of the Krypton Report. And I know what you're thinking, Tyler, where you been? Well, like I talked before, Janine and I had to re-record everything, and Janine has been busy doing some plays and everything, so it's been difficult to spend time with her. But I have a replacement here. And you're like, oh no, who's going to replace Jania? Well, who other than Southgate Media's own, a voice of DC, Mr. Phil Parrish.
Nobody can replace Jania.
Welcome, Phil.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to do something a little different today. Phil and I will be discussing episode 16, Falling, and episode 17, Manhunter. We're going to kind of double it up, and we want to do this because we want to get everybody ready for the rebroadcast starting in August of Supergirl, so you can re-listen and get ready for season 2. All right, Phil. So let's get started. First of all, it's been a while, Phil.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the casting of Tyler Hoechlin to be Superman?
I'm not too familiar with his acting work. Like I haven't seen him before, but physically, I mean, yeah, I could see him pulling off as Superman physically. Like I said, I don't know his acting ability, but I'm sure it's fine. But
back in 2013, there was rumors that he had auditioned to be the younger Bruce Wayne for BVS before they went Affleck. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, my wife and I, being someone like, okay, I need to find out who this is, we started watching Teen Wolf. And the first season of Teen Wolf is good. The second season's really good. It's an interesting show starting in the third season, but I watched it because he was a main character in that show. And I think he's got the chops. I think he'll pull it off, and it'll be something different. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table. So with that said, let's get into episode 16, Falling. Now this episode starts out with Cat Grant on a talk show talking about being the most powerful person in National City. And I like this episode. It has one of my favorite scenes of any Supergirl episode. Do you know what scene that might be, Phil?
Her getting dropped off a building.
No, that was pretty exciting. But I really like the scene where the little girl's dressed as Supergirl.
Yes.
And the other girls are harassing her, and Supergirl hears it and flies down and uses her X-ray to see her name and says, she's friends with all the nice girls. That, to me, I love, because that's a very Superman, Supergirl thing to do. Mm-hmm. And we need more of that in our characters, because that's about how they connect with, their audience. Now we have Senator Crane, who's returned in this episode, who seems to have a thing for Mr. Henshaw, a.k.a. Mr. John Jones. And what I do find interesting is this episode introduces Red Kryptonite. Phil, what's your history on the knowledge of Red Kryptonite?
Well, I know they've done different versions in the comics. I saw different versions. And then, of course, just like you, I saw Smallville, and I don't think they did Red in the Christopher Reeve movies.
No,
they did. Like, I know in Superman 3 they did that synthetic kryptonite, but
which is kind of what they've started to become. And I was about to rewatch Superman 3 before this just to see if there was more parallels in the obvious couple. But the whole synthetic kryptonite, I like the story they did in this. I wish they maybe would have changed the color to something else, because it always makes me think of Smallville. with the red kryptonite where he was exposed, but he kept it on him. This, she was exposed and it had lasting effect, even though she didn't have the kryptonite with her. And the other thing was, Maxwell Lord created it. That means that Superman has never been exposed to red kryptonite. But the red kryptonite issue has never come up. Because in this universe, Maxwell Lord created it. And he didn't create it until Supergirl showed up.
Yeah, I don't know. I never get fully behind those storylines where someone creates the kryptonite. It's like, okay, if it's that easy to create it, like, wouldn't, like, every villain with enough money be trying to buy this kryptonite?
Yeah, I agree with you. The only one I liked was when, was it Deathstorm was trying to create it for the crime syndicate. I thought that was really cool. I mean, he transmutates. He's the evil version of Firestorm. So I thought, okay, that would be cool. That makes sense. But I'll tell you what, I love Melissa's acting in this episode. I mean, every performance she turns in is top notch. But when she switches to being red kryptonite possessed, when she's all like, whatever, lets the Fort Ross villain go, punches the wall, like, I'm feeling it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's always fun to, especially if you're playing a character as good as that, just to, like, turn it completely around for at least for an episode and let it all hang out. I've never, like, this episode we see more of the treachery that is Siobhan Smythe. And to me, it's not that I don't like the actress. Siobhan Smythe, she's supposed to be Scottish. You know, like, you're killing the diversity here. Like, she's supposed to be Scottish, and this actress looks the least Scottish possible. I think, didn't they explain it later on? Was she Scottish, but, like, several generations removed? There's, you know, like... Yeah, I mean, it's something like that, but to me, it just kind of kills the character. Yeah, I really like how they did Silver Banshee, Siobhan, in the New 52. I thought it was really cool how her and Kara were friends, and Siobhan was fighting it. She only turned into the Banshee to stop Kara. So I'm like, oh man, come on. Like, but it is what it is. I'm not disappointed. I mean, I really like Angry Kara. Like, Siobhan tries to type those emails and sets it up, and Kara prints it and sends it to Kat, and, you know, she gets fired, and poor Wynn's caught in the middle, as you know, the friend zone boy usually is. And it just stinks. I did like when Kara goes and she gets her black outfit. I'm like, where did she get this outfit? I'm like, did she just run over to Non's like, hey, I need to borrow an outfit? No. I don't know. When you have super speed, you can make up, I don't know, can she sew? You can make something pretty quick. Oh, yeah. You know what's neat, though? Janine and I have been rewatching all of Smallville, because she really likes the latter seasons where it's more Clark Lois focused. But when she's not around, I've been rewatching Lois and Clark. And I'm in season 3, and Lois sees that his suit was tore up. And she says, I thought your suits were indestructible. And he explains that his body projects an aura just a couple of inches from him, that anything that he's wearing or anything like that is protected. And I'm like, you know, that's always been in the comics. And I kind of wish they would touch on that just to help explain how this suit that she has or she wears is indestructible. Because, you know, they showed that Wynn helped her make it.
So just, touching on that to help fill in the gaps of, all right, this is why the suit is indestructible because of the whole aura thing. Not because you're talking about being able to sew, so it makes any fabric indestructible. Just cool little fact I thought I'd bring up here.
Yeah, they need something like that, especially on TV, because I don't think they want to be ripping holes in costumes every 2 seconds.
Exactly. They spend too much for the costumes. They've only got a few. They need what they can. Now, I do need to make a statement of something I totally had forgotten while watching Smallville. That in season 9, there's one episode that Maxwell Lord appears, and I totally had forgotten that because it's such a one-off thrown idea character name they just toss out there. So there is a version of Maxwell Lord that appears in Smallville season 9. So if you're interested in just seeing a different version of the character, check that out. But it is interesting to see different characters reemerge. But back to the show. Now, did you understand the scene where Kara is sitting at the bar flicking peanuts?
Oh yeah, I recognize that immediately. Plus, people were all over social media about it. Yeah, it's an homage to Superman 3 when he's sitting in the bar.
I loved it. That's why I really wanted to rewatch Superman 3, just to see if there was any other little things that maybe I would catch, because I rewatched the episode last night. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what, man, it took me way too long to watch Superman 3. Mm-hmm. It was always really hard to get past the intro and just all the bad vibes, and I was always like, man, do I really want to spoil and soil the good name of Superman? But I did. I watched it eventually.
Yeah, if there's one part I mean, I could skip most of it, but if there's one part I want to see if it's on TV or something, it's that junkyard scene.
Yes. Yes.
For those of you who haven't seen it, Superman vs. Clark Kent, that's all I'll say.
And who wins? You'll have to find out. Now, one thing I wish they haven't really discussed is how the powers work for Martian Manhunter. Does he have to be able to use his strength and all that? Does he have to be green? Because we find out that Maxwell Lord created the Red K. He gives it to Alex, this weapon that will reverse the effects. Mm-hmm. And they go to stop Supergirl because she's, like you mentioned earlier, she threw Kat off the building. She's acting out of... she's just acting out of character. She's doing things that are worrying people. So... they're going to stop her. But what's crazy is she goes to stop her. Kara knocks out the gun. And then flings Hank Jones. That's what I'm calling him. I'm going to start calling him Hank Jones. She flings Hank Jones and hits a street light. And then he goes to stop her and he turns into Martian Manhunter and reveals himself. And that's always been kind of a big thing where he doesn't want to reveal himself because, as he put it, in one episode, even though he's a good guy, he's not the pretty cheerleader type. Mm-hmm. And he fights her, and they say something about he could be just as strong as her. But what are your thoughts on the portrayal of Martian Manhunter and just the way his powers are working?
I like what they've been doing with him on this show, and the whole thing about him having to transform to use his full power set. It just seemed to me like maybe when he... I'm trying to remember where I've heard this. I swear I've heard this somewhere about shapeshifters. When they're holding a different form, it's like they're flexing a muscle. So, I don't know. to get his full strength and concentration, he has to assume like his real form or something close to it.
And that's kind of where my mind's at, and I agree with, is like he's breaking his concentration. Mm-hmm. Having a child keeps you up at night. Mm-hmm. So I'm yawning a lot. So our listeners, Phil knows, and if you have children, you know too. Solomon did not want to go to sleep till 11 o'clock, and he was fussy, and he woke up. So Daddy's tired. But I liked Hank, basically coming out as Martian Manhunter and saving as they stop Supergirl. The scene where Supergirl wakes up on the table and she just has like her breakdown. Mm-hmm. It's just so emotionally powerful.
Oh, yes.
And I loved it. I mean, and Kat had made that video where basically denouncing Supergirl because she was acting villainous. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything was just top notch. I mean, I haven't been really disappointed in an episode at all. I feel like everything they do is just top notch.
But yeah, Melissa should have got an Emmy for that scene where she just breaks down.
I totally agree. I mean, superhero shows, we know they get screwed over.
Yeah, they don't respect the genre.
They don't get what they deserve. Hmm. It is what it is, though. Mm-hmm. But this episode starts off with just that great scene of Kara with the little girl, and it moves into basically everybody losing faith in Kara. Mm-hmm. So, what are your thoughts?
That's like another classic superhero storyline, the public losing faith in the hero when they've either been mind controlled or brainwashed, or maybe they just made like an honest mistake.
Yeah, and I'm just like, are we really that bad?
Well, when you think about it, I mean, if you hear, even if it isn't completely proven, if you hear something bad about someone in real life on TV, like a politician or a celebrity, isn't that seed already planted in your mind? Like, well, there's where there's smoke, there's fire,
I mean, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I'm like, I don't know. I try to give people somewhat of the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, there's a big part of the population that just wants to hate.
And that's what's sad, is we would rather see our quote-unquote heroes fail and fall. And basically, I think in a sense, it helps build ourselves up. Like, see, look, they're no better than us. Then understand that things happen and they're just like anybody else trying. We always want to tear them down instead of put them up. Mm-hmm. And that's where this episode leaves us, is in the state of Kara having to try to figure out what to do now that she's basically destroyed her image, and how after Kat made that video, basically nobody trusts Supergirl. How can she rebuild her image? Mm-hmm. And that's where this episode leaves us. So thoughts, Phil, on this episode?
I remember loving the episode, and then at the end just being like, oh, here we go. Next episode, everyone's gonna be against her. Will she turn public opinion around by the end of the next episode, or is Barry Allen gonna see some of this backlash?
Barry, the Great and Powerful.
Because they announced that I forget how far ahead of time they announced that, but it was a couple months, wasn't it?
Yeah, because we were pumped.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I'm like, it's like you said, you have these tropes, these superhero tropes, and I feel like there are some that you can't get around that you have to indulge in, but it's finding that new way, that new twist on it to make it fresh. So I think they did a good job, and I feel like we'll see how it plays out without going too long, because that's always the issue, is how long do you make it last?
Yeah, because if it's too quick, it's like, okay, that's not believable. If it's too long, it's like, okay, come on already, we get it.
I mean, how many times do we have, like you said, in real life, where we see these celebrities or people who do something horrible, but how people are quick to forgive them, and they're back in the spotlight as if they didn't do anything. And I know people make mistakes, don't get me wrong, but forgiveness is something we should always strive for. So that's going to wrap up episode 16. Now, if you haven't watched episode 17, I recommend pausing the podcast, watching it, and then going back. So here we go. Phil and I are now jumping into Supergirl number 17, Manhunter. All right, Phil, we're back.
All right.
Whoa, long time no chat. Now, this episode starts where we know that Mr. John Jones has been outed. The DEO has him. And they're going to investigate to see if anyone knew that he was an alien. And we get a very awesome Martian Manhunter. I don't know if the word I want to say is not facts, but we see him with some cookies.
Oh, yeah, Easter egg.
When I did my funny little goofy fan film thingy, and I had my buddy Joe play Martian Manhunter, the scene was just him sitting, chilling, eating Oreos, and I put it in there to see if anyone would catch who it is. Because I was like, I don't have the budget to make him Martian and have powers. So how can I express that he's, you know what? Eat these Oreos, bro. So that's not what's in there, and that's funny. But one thing I really like about this episode is it's a flashback for a good chunk of it. We get to see the real Hank Henshaw.
Jerk.
And yeah, I must say, douche. Man, like, did anybody like him? No, everybody liked John Jones more as Hank Henshaw. But you know who else we get to see?
Dean Cain.
Yes. And for those who may be just joining us and don't know this, Dean Cain played Superman in the early 90s, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. And one thing I always loved in Smallville was all the respect they paid to past actors and people. And I love that Supergirl's doing the same thing, with her parents being a previous Supergirl and Superman. It just really makes me enjoy the show that much more.
Not to get too far off topic, but just recently, Noelle Neal, the original Lois Lane, passed away. I just heard, do you know she was in 2 other different Superman projects later on?
She was in Superman Returns.
Yes, she was the old lady Lex, like,
in
the beginning.
Yeah, we were gonna. I'm doing a Superman Returns 10-year anniversary podcast, and we're gonna touch on that more. But her Superman credits is interesting because she was the first Lois Lane in the. Oh man, hold on! Don't make me feel stupid. But if I remember right, and I'm pulling it up right now, it's early. She was in there with Kirk Allen. And as Lois Lane, and she was in the Superman and the Mole Men movie with George Reeves. And when the George Reeves show started, she wasn't in the first season. Phyllis Coates was in the first season. And then the second season, Phyllis was replaced with Noelle Neal. And after she passed, like, I really wanted to meet her because there's a statue of her we went and saw that's in Metropolis, Illinois. She's always at Superman Celebration. I wanted to see if I could meet her sometime. I tweeted out there was a really cool thing that Erica Durance had said about her being the Lois Lane from Smallville. And I introduced Solomon to the George Reeves Superman because, ironically, the only season I have at the moment is season 2. So we popped that in and we're watching it. It's a good show, actually. It's for those who are like, oh, it's old and cheesy, but no, they got away with being able to pull off some cool effects, and they actually have some serious tone in that show compared to some of the camp that would later be in Lois and Clark.
But do you know she was in one other thing too, Superman related?
Oh, what's that, Phil?
They said in the original Christopher Reeve Superman, she played Lois's mom when they were on the train and he like runs by.
Yes, and I brain farted and forgot that. Yeah, and Kirk Allen is Lois's father.
Yes,
the original serials Superman. And once again, that is a tradition in those films set that other super shows have continued with just honoring those who came before it. And she was like 95. That's a long time. Think about that.
No.
And I say that in the sense of, Superman's now 78 years old. This year's the 75 years of Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. And if you think about that, she played one of the most iconic characters of Lois Lane, but she was born and lived before the character was even created. Mm-hmm. Jeannie and I were joking around the other day, and we were joking because, like I said, she's doing a play, and in the play, these people reference Romeo and Juliet being this great love story, and isn't it romantic? And I was like, no. I've always had an issue with Romeo and Juliet, but that's another story. I'm like, no, they were just full of crap. I was like, I want to have a better love story, like Clark and Lois, Jim and Pam. Like, we were naming off all these characters who have a better love story than Romeo and Juliet. But, Clark and Lois, of course, being my first choice. And just saying that based on, like, how iconic the character of Lois Lane has become, and Noelle Neal was in the forefront of creating that first physical representation of the character. So it's sad, but it's part of life,
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to get us too far off track. But...
No, hey, if it's super related, if it's Kryptonian related, then that's perfect. But, I mean, we're jumping back to Manhunter. It's cool. The fans don't mind. If they did, they'd email or tweet me and be like, Tyler, stay on target. But we find out that Jeremiah is working, for the DEO. We knew that. We knew that Hank Shaw pretty much blackmailed him into being part of the DEO. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay. And we see that they're going to hunt this Manhunter alien that's been hiding out. And they reference that he's been here for a while. I thought that was kind of neat. And Jeremiah, of course, is like, oh, let's talk to him. Let's find out how much he might know, what he's seen and experienced. And I like that they're showing of Jeremiah. And Hank's like, let's kill him. Like, he just seems like he's really quick to want to eliminate everything.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, if you found out there was aliens, yeah, you want to stop them, but what can you learn from them? Because if there is an invasion coming or something like that, you'd be better prepared by taking the moment to learn from the aliens than just, killing them.
Yeah, but if you're this paranoid, fearful guy, you're gonna be like, if we stop and wait to try to learn from them, they might kill us or enslave us before we get the chance to do anything.
um, yeah, and it's just, I don't know, it was awesome. And this episode is it's powerful because you see more of the character of John and really who he is. And it kind of harkens back to me in that sense of Superman being an alien but being more human than us. Mm-hmm. Same thing as the compassion that John has and shows is what we should strive for. But then it shows how they're just like, we're going to kill this alien. And I'm like, is it because he's green? And he's different looking? I mean, we've accepted Supergirl. But I do like, I always hate this, is when they find a way to block the superhero's power. And they're like, we've created a neural inhibitor or whatever that's this force field. So you're going to be stuck in that body. You can't shift. And then Supergirl can't hear. I'm like, come on, man. That's not cool. But then they have that one employee who just happens to leave her mic calm at her desk and walks away. I thought that was pretty awesome. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how Mr. Phil felt.
Oh, no, that was cool.
So, and we do get a name drop in this episode that is pretty prominent in Superman lore. Are you ready, Phil?
Yes.
Drum roll. Cadmus.
Yes.
And I'm like, so what do you think Cadmus's role and everything might be?
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be helpful to the DEO and Supergirl, or are they going to be like where new threats are coming from, like clones or monsters or who knows what?
Now, with Cadmus, one of the first things people jump to is Superboy, which could be a really cool character to add in. Not full-time, part-time, have someone else to work with. But, that just kind of see why Superboy and most of the more recent, before Rebirth, should I say, was a semi-clone of Clark mixed with Lex's DNA. And you can't have Supergirl girl as a sidekick. So it would be kind of weird if Superboy was like Kara Maxwell Lord's DNA. That'd be weird. So I'm wondering, or as some people theorize, because we learn another huge bomb in this episode. You ready? That Jeremiah Danvers lives. Supposedly. So that, my next thought, and what a lot of people jump to, is Cyborg Superman.
Yes.
Now, what are your thoughts on if they develop Jeremiah in Cadmus Labs to Cyborg Superman?
They could do that because in the New 52, they showed Kara's Kryptonian father was the Cyborg Superman.
Yeah, that was a whole huge, and I discussed that in my New 52 Supergirl review about Zor-El being turned into cyber. I mean, that was insane.
Plus, I think they're bringing back that plot line in Supergirl Rebirth.
Hey, I'm excited to read Supergirl Rebirth. I'm really looking forward to it.
And plus, they can always go another Cyborg Superman route because what if they reveal that the real Hank Henshaw is alive?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that from the beginning, but because the way they show him die, and this is one of those movie deaths of, oh, he's dead, but he could be alive.
What's the number one rule of comic books, Tyler?
You have to see a body.
And even if you do, it's probably like a clone or something.
You have to see a body with its head cut off. But even then, they'll find a way to wreck on it. I mean, come on. Smallville, they killed Lex and then brought him back through clones. But this episode definitely perpetuates the relationship of the girls with Hank. Because at the end, they're going to take Hank to Cadmus, and that's where we get the line. And Supergirl and Alex show up and rescue him, and then Hank mind wipes the military men that were there, and we find out that Lucy gets put in charge of the DEO. What are your thoughts on the character of Lucy in general?
I kind of like what they do with her because she's not just Lois Lane's kid sister. I don't know. I like the military background because that's what they did later on in the comics, and which, that eventually got her the Superwoman. But I don't know if I buy that they just handed her the DEO after 2 seconds.
Yeah, my father was in the military, and I say that because it's not really easy to get out of the military then jump back in.
Yeah.
Like, she leaves and starts working for Kat, and then she gets back in. Now, granted, her father is General Sam Lane, and he pulled some strings, and
yeah.
I like that Lucy is more of a younger version of her father. So you get that stronger character, and like you said, the military background compared to, we see a version of Lucy in Smallville. We see a version of Lucy in this old Supergirl movie. But I feel like this, we're actually able to really carve out a character for her. Now, irony, do you know who played Lucy in Smallville?
I think I saw this and I forget. Who, Tyler?
Good old Golden Glider from The Flash.
Yes.
So, but I'm really happy with the way that they progressed the character. And, this episode ends with Hank and Alex on the run. And, I don't know. I really like what they do because they shook things up. And you don't really hate any characters other than Sam Lane. Even in some way, Maxwell Lord, as much as you hate him, he's not as evil as like a Lex Luthor, where you just see him as being completely corrupt. There are parts where Maxwell Lord makes sense, and you're like, okay, I see your point of view.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like later versions of Lex, too. He's not... They don't do that as much anymore with their villains, Marvel and DC. It's just like, he's not evil for evil's sake. Like Max and Lex, they actually think they're doing good for humanity, but, a lot of the times they're not.
Yeah, and I mean, I like that to a point, but at another point, I'm like, just give me a bad guy. Like, stop making everybody anti-hero-ish. I need someone to hate. Like, I need a bad guy.
Yeah, I don't know, and they're trying to go for realism. It's like, if you're the bad guy, are you really going to be that driven to your cause, or are you going to be driven because what you're doing you think you're 100% right in?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. No argument there. So we're going to shift gears here for a moment and just touch on a few things that we haven't really got to talk about here. A little behind in the news. But now, when they announced Superman was going to be on the show for 2 episodes, a lot of people had immediately jumped to wanting Tom Welling to do it. What were your thoughts on that?
I think that would have been like the Ultimate, with it bringing in all the old all the old actors who played different versions of Superman characters. I thought that would have been like the ultimate, but
I wanted it because I wanted to see you wearing in a full suit. And one thing that Jania and I have talked about a lot was the fact that it was Smallville. Every version, if you look at it, of a live action Superman, there's a little tweak on the symbol that makes it unique to them. I put on our Twitter and our Facebook page comparing the Kirk Allen and George Reeve and the Christopher Reeve and the Dean Cain and of course the Superman Returns, the Man of Steel, and then the Supergirl logo. How there's that slight distinctions in the shield, but Smallville never got that. And I mean, the closest thing he got to a costume was the season 9 Kandorian style, and then the red jacket that he got in season 10. When he went to the actual Superman suit, it was just the Superman Returns costume. Mm-hmm. And they made an awesome looking costume for him in the Smallville season 11 graphic novel. So I wanted to see him in full suit. Someone else suggested having Gerard Christopher do it. And I kind of like that. I mean, he is a lot older, and I did the math on how much older Superman should be than Supergirl. And I posted that on the website and Twitter as well. So, I mean, I could see him getting a little bit of an older Superman because Kara was, 10? And he's supposed to be like 30 when he comes out as Superman. So that puts him in his 40s right now when Kara, at the age that she is. So, I mean, I could see an older Superman. But like we just, they got Tyler Hoechlin, and he's a little older than Melissa. We'll see if he can pull it off and give that performance that I think is needed. Mm-hmm. Another big news, did you see that they are introducing the character of the President in season 2?
Yes.
And did you see who's playing the President?
Yes, Linda Carter, the 70s Wonder Woman.
Which is awesome. Once again, I love respecting the past. Do you remember what character she played on Smallville?
No, remind me.
She was in one episode as Chloe's mom.
Oh, yes.
So I like that Linda Carter is going to be there, and we just got also the introduction that they're bringing in Maggie Sawyer for season 2. Mm-hmm. Now, what are your thoughts with Maggie Sawyer and being that her past is connected to Batwoman?
Well, that's kind of a retcon. They really didn't bring that in till like the 2000s. Before that, she was like purely like right after Crisis on Infinite Earths, all the way up to like the 2000s. She was like a purely Metropolis character.
Okay, see, that's good to know. And that's going to... Mm-hmm. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is they are shooting the pilot for Krypton. That show that's been rumored for years that we helped create this podcast to discuss. Mm-hmm. And I got a little bit of a breakdown. They're shooting the pilot, which explores the homeworld of Superman generation before the planet's destruction. After 2 years of development, the pilot was officially ordered by Sci-Fi last month, and production is beginning in Montreal. According to the article that TV Line has, here is the characters we'll be seeing. And Seg-El is going to be envisioned as athletic, quietly confident in his 20s. His appearance, was in the classic Starman number 51 by James Robinson, with story by Robinson and Goyer, who of course is the executive producer and writer. So that character, I'm like, okay, we have a tie. We have Lyta Zod, a 20-something beauty who's going to be somehow connected to General Zod. We have Val-El, which is Seg's genius grandpa, who defied death by going into the Phantom Zone. We have Laura Zod, Lieda's mother. We have Dev M. Dev in the comics escaped the Doom Planet's abuse and eventually became an ally to the Legion of Heroes in the 30th century. And then we have Tur-El, Seg's father. We didn't get him to play Supergirl's Man of Steel, but maybe Tom Welling could play Clark's grandfather on Krypton. Yeah, that'd be cool. But my thing is, we're not really given a whole lot of description about these characters. Or one of these, like, is Seg-El, is that Jor-El's father? You know?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that has to be probably Jor-El's father, because I swear I heard somewhere they were talking about Kal-El's grandfather. So if his last name, I'm thinking it has to be Jor-El's father.
It has to be. And my thing is, with this show, what kind of, like, yeah, it's going to be nice to see Krypton and all of its glory and get to explore that society. But part of the fun is having the powers, and they don't have powers when they're on Krypton. So, and it's supposed to be more. And it's supposed to be, always rumored to be a Man of Steel's prequel series. And it makes me wonder if they're going to tie in the Man of Steel prequel comic that was Supergirl, where they're trying to do that Supergirl really differently. I posted links on the website and on the Facebook and the Twitter to read that as a PDF online. It's a very interesting read. Mm-hmm. So, right now I'm not super excited for Krypton, but I am intrigued by it. Especially, will it connect to the DCEU, being that it's supposed to be a prequel to Man of Steel, and show us more about Krypton? They're exploring space. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the show, Phil?
Yeah, I want to see what they're gonna do with this, because right now I'm like, well, how much can you do with this? Is it just gonna be like just like a sci-fi thing, where they have like fancy gadgets and spaceships, and although I wonder if some cosmic anomaly like turns the sun yellow for like an episode or two.
Probably, or they visit Earth. I don't know.
And I guarantee you, probably by the end of season 2 or 3, someone's going to discover that the planet only has a generation or 2 left.
See, I always thought it really good, if you're going to do a prequel, would be about Jor-El growing up and having brotherly troubles, why there's kind of a rift between them, and then having Zod as like their friend, and how the three of them eventually become enemies, and how Zod was their best friend, but then he turns against them, and it takes the brothers coming back together to try to stop Zod before the planet's destruction. That way we're dealing with characters that we're more familiar with, but as a younger, we're not too far removed from the characters that we know. And I feel
that's what I thought. Yeah. When I first heard when I first heard about this, that's what I thought it was going to be, and then when I heard, maybe Cal's grandfather, I was like, okay.
If you get too far removed in stuff that we don't know, you're going to lose interest. So that's my main concern with Krypton, the series. But hey, I'm excited to see what happens. Any final thoughts, Phil?
No, not really. I really can't wait to see. I can't wait for season 2 of Supergirl to start. I want to see if how Flashpoint affects it. If we're going to get a Flashpoint episode of Supergirl, or if Flashpoint's just basically going to bring her universe into the connected to the rest of the CW shows. Bring them all into one universe.
I'm wondering when Barry goes to fix Flashpoint, if that's how everything gets connected.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
So that's where my head's at, because it's a lot to do because all the shows being interconnected. So I'm really interested to see is it's going to be one episode or if it's going to be like a multi-episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited for that. And they haven't shown the character of Jor-El in any flashbacks, have they, on Supergirl?
No.
See, that's who I think Tom Welling should be.
There you go.
Because, I mean, he's at that age now. And the last thing I was going to say, and I meant to say this earlier, I'm really interested to see what kind of costume they come up with Superman. And I hope they keep the same kind of symbol that Supergirl has for his, with, the blue background, the gold outline, and kind of keep that as this universe's shield. And I just hope they do something more, like we talked about, original for his suit. That's, it's similar to what Supergirl's is, but yet it's defining of this universe.
Yes.
So I look forward to seeing that here soon, some sort of picture drop of him in the suit. But all right, Phil, do you want to drop and tell people where they can find you online besides just every Southmate DC podcast?
Yeah, you can always talk to me about all DC and Marvel. You can email me nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I'm at nightwingpdp. You'll usually catch me live tweeting the like most of the DC shows when they're live. And yeah, like you said, I'm all over Southgate Media Group, but if you just want to find all my stuff, you can also go to my website, philparrish.wordpress.com.
I swear it should be Phil the Great and Powerful, but I guess just Phil Parrish works too. Alright, well, Phil, I want to thank you for being on this episode. Look forward to finishing out the season with you and getting ready for season 2. You are welcome. And remember, fellow Kryptonians, look up in the sky.